Today I wanted to talk about everyone's favorite life of the party character, the gnome. The gnomes and spelljammers are tinkerers from Giant Space. Known for their inventiveness and their destruction caused by these gadgets, many don't even question why so many have been disappearing from Giant themselves. Gnomes have fit right into Wildspace. Their exploration nature has seen them settle in with most human colonies and mingled with other gnomes throughout the spheres. They have a strange relationship with the arcane, who have taken a liking to the free spirits, more so than most other races. The Minyu claim to be the chosen children of Rirox, Kryn's god of creation, who were specifically chosen by him in a mythical dawn of the world to embody all his virtues and skills. Mind you, Tinker Gnomes also claim to be responsible for forging the Dragon Lances. Between the external disaster and the internal incompetence of the Gnomish history is pretty much a mystery. Well, technically it's not, as the Gnomish culture dictates the preservation of every single individual gnome's life in a detailed diary, but wading through such material is the most incredibly boring task anyone can envision, and even intrepid scholars balking at the monumental process of wading through the incalculable tirades of trivial nonsense to find a few glimmering nuggets of such significance. Still, every race agrees upon is that the Minyu were once humans who were taken in as students by Rirox during the Age of Dreams, but only to anger him when they began using what they have learned for their own agendas. He inflicted a great curse upon these failed students, transforming them into the first Tinker Gnomes and cast them out into the world, but he never entirely turned away from them. And in time, he found a use for them, inspiring them to pluck forth the Gray Gem, or the Gray Stone depending on which version, a magical crystal he created, which he believed would anchor neutrality itself within Kryn, and ensure that it could never be fully swayed by good or evil. One heroic Minyu succeeded with a little help of Rirox, but when the Gray Gem returned to Kryn, it suddenly flew away from the gnomes, shedding raw, primordial chaos energy in its wake. Most of the race pursued it, following it to the far west, where it had been captured by the wizard king Ancelon named Gargoth. Here the Tinker Gnomes laid siege to Gargoth, taking heavy casualties from repeat failures at entering the castle with their useful siege engines before one finally fell over and broke through. As the gnomes poured into the castle of the interior, the Gray Gem's chaos washed over them. 2/3 of the gnomes began to fight over what they should do with the Gray Gem, to the bemusement of their remaining kindred. Those fighting gnomes were transformed into the first dwarves and kender, depending on whether they had been consumed by greed or curiosity. The no longer gnomes scattered across Ancelon, whilst remaining Minyu pursued the Gray Gem. Most of them ultimately gave up the chase and settled on the island of St. Christ, where they colonized the extinct volcano that has become to be known as Mount Nevermind. Since the day, the Minyu had little impact on the world of Kryn. Only 3 things have happened on St. Christ that other races have bothered to take note of. First was the establishing of an alliance between the Minyu and the Solmani. Initially, the gnomes panicked at the approach of strange, warlike humans and came up with typically Minish plans to make their mountain home disappear. Instead, they flooded its depths with noxious, mildly poisonous, incredibly foul-smelling fumes, forcing them to flee their homes and stagger onto the beach, where the bemused humans were waiting for them. Having fled the fumes before them, fortunately the Minyu and the Solmans were kindly and peaceful people, and they were quick to help the gnomes recover. Thus the bonds between the people was born, and the day of rotten eggs has never been forgotten on Solmania. Secondly, the cataclysm itself, which actually benefited the Minyu, as it forced the land up and increased both the size of the Isle of St. Christ itself and the stature of the mountains in its northern half. Finally, during the War of the Souls, St. Christ was technically conquered by the Red Dragon on behalf of Tigris. Unfortunately for the dragon, he found the gnomes so fearless, stupid in their obsession with learning about him, and so annoying that he ultimately secluded himself away from them and left them to just continue as they pleased. Note that some assert a slightly different origin, claiming that gnomes evolved or were transformed from dwarves instead of the other way around, most likely as a result of the Gray Gem. This argument is rather stymied by the Minyu's lack of visual acuity and deep darkness compared to the dwarves. And of course, the dwarves themselves assert that they are Rurok's favorite children, and the gnomes are just the one's more flawed prototype races he made before he finally created perfection, which embodied the dwarves. Their distinct origin as cursed humans explains why Tinker Gnomes of Krynn are able to interbreed with humans, creating poor souls known as Krynnish half-gnomes. The curse of Ruroks is a truly cruel thing, as it fills the menu with the obsession to perform science, but the complete inability to do so in a sensible way. Gnome ships are usually a work in progress, full of whatever materials they can come upon or reuse. Today I'm going to go over a ship called the Gnomish Sidewheeler. Each Gnomish Sidewheeler is unique. Each ship is built of the collected scrap, all odd inventions, and leftover bits from other ships. Gnomish individualism and personality is found in each Sidewheeler, so no two ships look exactly alike. For that matter, the same Gnomish Sidewheeler will look different over time, as the gnomes modify various portions of the ship to their own needs. New portholes and accessways across the ship as weapon turrets are added and then discarded. Gnomes are more interested in salvage than standard repair and refit, so the scraps of two ships are often brought together to form one hybrid vessel. A typical ship will have around 21 to 40 gnomes. They don't have fixed ranks other than just a captain, so they'll rotate helmsman, navigator, and quartermaster around and around. One time a gnome would be a chef, and the next time he'll be charting which next sphere to go to. Gnomes' helms are large, grandiose creations that look like Greek and Gothic have mated together and are very unreliable. The bridge is wherever the captain is at. It saves on space, so there's no real designated bridge. Their ships are slow but cheap for travel, and they're excited by exploration but are horrible at keeping notes, and they have been known to visit the same place more than once and thinking they've just gotten there the first time. Their ships are rarely heavily armed. They sometimes are known to have weapons on them more than what can be manned because they consider those spares. The Nyogi and Mind Flayers have realized that the gnomes make horrible slaves because who wants them fixing their nautiloid ship? And so they leave them alone for the most part. This leads us to the Giant Space Hamsters. That's right, because why not have D&D lore of gigantic hamsters on wheels that propel a spaceship through wild space? They are raised on colonies throughout wild space and are usually golden brown and white underbellies. They can store up to 200 pounds of food within their cheeks. Created by a gnome research committee, they were looking for a passive animal that had enough strength to wind up the rubber bands by running on a massive hamster wheel inside of the ship. The hamsters also supplied the ship plenty of meat, which they called Spaham, S-P-A-H-A-M. And you would actually find a lot of farms throughout wild space just cultivating this fresh meat. Another interesting invention is the Autognome, a mechanical gnome with gears, pulleys, and bits of magic inside. The Tinker Gnomes created them for exploration, rescue, prospecting in environments hostile to life, and it works just as well as any of their other inventions. These automatons resemble gnomes, though no one can ever confuse an autognome with a real gnome. Autognomes' faces are painted even down to the red circles on their cheeks. They walk with a stiff gait, clanking, whizzing, whirling, razzing, their arms swinging out of rhythm. Autognomes speak Gnomish and Common in the nasal monotone. Autognomes are either directed under the gnome's control or rogues, which have forgotten their orders or are now wandering wild space doing anything except what they were designed for. They obey the following directives. 1. Defend a gnome under attack by non-gnomes. 2. Defend themselves against an attack. And 3. Defend babies and children from harm. The last directive arose from the best intentions, but unfortunately, it neglects to specify the race. So if, for instance, an autognome sees elves battling a young beholder, the autognome blasts away the elves. The autognomes attack with 2 heavy metallic fists, each doing 1d10 of damage. Unfortunately, the autognomes are slow and always attack at the last in the round when using their fists, since one of their functions is to collect soil samples from different planets. Most autognomes have a retractable metal scoop. If this scoop is used as a weapon, it inflicts 1d12 damage. Some Autognomes are used exclusively for battle. They have a wand of lightning set in their chests. These wands have 5d10 charges remaining and are salvageable after Autognome is defeated, or more likely when it breaks down and collapses into a useless heap. Whichever attack form the Autognome chooses, it yells as it fights: crush, kill, destroy, exterminate, exterminate, maim, hurt. The malfunctions. Every successful hit on an Autognome has a 10% chance of causing a malfunction. Anytime an Autognome rolls a 1 for its attack, it has a 25% chance of malfunctioning. Finally, an Autognome has a 5% non-commutative chance per day of malfunctioning. Whatever the cause, roll a 1d12 and consult the following table. 1 through 2, the Autognome becomes rogue. 3, Autognome attacks itself for 1d4 rounds. 4 to 5, its head or limbs fall off. 6 to 7, as 4 to 5, but Autognome spends 1 round reattaching the lost limb. 8 and 9, Autognome attempts to extract a core sample from a victim. 10, Autognome shuts down for 1d10 hours. 11, Autognome explodes 3d10 damage in a 20-foot radius. Autognome's orders recharge 1 through 6. 12, Autognome's orders change 1 through 6. 1, self-destruct sequence starts. 2, Autognome gives its report. 3, Autognome asks to record report and remains stationary. 4, Autognome begins talking backwards. 5, the nearest PC is recognized as a baby. 6, the nearest PC is recognized as a gnome. Since Autognomes are autonomons, they have no society or preferred habitat. A Gnomish Spelljammer has a 10% chance of having 1d4 Autognomes on board to explore hostile environments. Autognomes can follow up to 100 different orders, including what to do in certain situations or what minerals to look for on a planet. An Autognome can memorize and recite everything it sees and hears in a 24-hour period. An Autognome can converse with others, but its thought processes are inflexible, and it does not deviate from its orders. Figures of speech are lost on it. Autognome logic is narrow. For instance, an Autognome may be ordered to fetch a rock sample. In its travels, it meets a human warrior named Rock, therefore out comes the sample scoop. There is a 1/3 chance of an encounter of an Autognome as rogue. It has forgotten its orders and now one of the following conditions. 1, the Autognome believes itself to be a real gnome and tries to live a normal life, including eating and sleeping. 2, an Autognome awaits new orders from anyone it meets. 3, the same as number 2, except it does the opposite of what it is told. 4, the Autognome attacks all living creatures in sight. The gnomes guard the secret of building Autognomes jealously. Though no one but gnomes want to build the things, it is rumored that it has required many spells such as enchant an item, animate object, and permanency, and it costs at least 10,000 gold just to get it going. Gnomes are great mood breakers, especially after a dark setting your campaign may be on. So have your characters stumble upon a gnome ship, maybe in need of a helping hand because their giant hamsters have escaped everywhere and they need help finding them to get their ship running again. Or maybe have a group of Autognomes that have went rogue and have taken over a ship and are looking to attack anybody in sight, and that happens to be the players. Either way, introducing this lighthearted race into your game could make for a memorable NPCs that could lead your party in unexpected ways and avenues. So I hope this helped you out a little bit to get to know the gnomes of Spelljammer, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.